Here's Chris. Okay, I do see him.
All right,
Okay. Ready to go? All right, at 6:06, the June 15th meeting of the Mountain View Wisman School District Board of Trustees is called to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. May I have roll call, please?
Devin Conley,
Ellen Wheeler,
Laura Berman,
Laura Blakely, and Trustee Chang. I believe you're with us virtually. Can you unmute yourself or raise your hand in Zoom to confirm that you're here? How do we do this? Do we just note when he comes online, what time? I mean, it looks like he's here. Okay, so I mean, let the record reflect that Trustee Chang is attending this meeting virtually, but having difficulties with the audio to announce his presence. Okay, and Trustee Chang, if you can do the raise hand function, if you can't use the audio, that would suffice as well. When we take votes and such. All right, the next thing is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
so moved. Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, on a motion made by Trustee Wheeler and seconded by Trustee Conley, the motion passes with 4 votes. And because we can't see or hear Trustee Chang, I guess we will note him as abstaining for the time being. All righty. The next item on the agenda is communications. Are there any members of employee organizations attending the meeting this evening who would like to make some comments? If so, please raise your hand in Zoom, or if you are attending by, we don't have any attendees by phone, please raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, seeing none, are there any members of district committees attending this evening who would like to make comments? If so, please raise your hand in Zoom. All right, Dr. Rudolph, you're up next.
Yep, just want to remind everybody that Spanish interpretation is available for this meeting. If you're using a Mac or PC, click on the globe at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're on an iPhone or Android, it is in the options menu. La interpretación a español es disponible para este avión. Si has usado una Mac o una PC, haga clic en el globo en la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom. Si está en iPhone o Android, está el menú de opciones.
Your only comment for us this evening?
That's my only. I'll say the rest for tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So I guess we will move along to community comments, item 3. This is the time reserved for community members to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board and administration welcome this opportunity to listen. However, in compliance with the Brown Act, the board is not permitted to take action on non-agenda items. If there are any people attending this evening who would like to make a comment on an item that is not on the agenda, will you please raise your hand in Zoom? Okay, I am not seeing any raised hands, so let's move along to item 4, review and action. And the first item is the public hearing public hearing and resolution number 01061522, developer fee rates based on the presented developer fee study and recent action of the State Allocation Board. And that is Ron Wheelahan, our interim Chief Business Officer. Welcome, Mr. Wheelahan. Please, we are looking forward to your comments and your presentation.
Okay.
Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Board President, trustees, staff, and community. And are you able to hear me okay? Yes. Okay. So I'm Ron Wheelahan, the Interim Chief Business Officer. And this item is requesting to raise the developer fee rate in accordance with the Office of School Public Construction, and the State Allocation Board raises the developer fee rates every 2 years. And for this year, we have done a level 1 developer fee study, which is attached into your materials. And that has created the nexus between development and the impact on schools. And we are requesting to raise the residential and commercial fees. So the net increase on residential is 47 cents and the net increase on commercial is 8 cents. And at the board's pleasure to open a hearing to hear public comments or have questions for me.
Thank you. Do we need to close this meeting? And then, okay, so at 6:12, the regular meeting is adjourned momentarily and the hearing is open. And so if people have comments on this item, do we have the board members do clarifying questions first, if there were any? Just the normal item. Okay, well, board members, any questions on this item? No. All right, thank you. Well, if there are any members of the public wishing to speak on this item regarding developer fee rates, will you please raise your hand in Zoom? Okay, seeing none, do we then close the hearing? Okay, thank you. At 6:13, the public hearing on the developer fee rates is closed and we are re-adjourning to the regular meeting. Do we just move along then to the next? Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. So trustees, may I have a motion to?
I make a motion to approve and adopt resolution 01-061522, authorizing the increase in developer fee rates as presented in the developer fee study dated May 5th, 2022.
I second. Okay, all in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
And I'm trying to see, Trustee Chang, if you can say aye, unmute yourself, say aye, or raise your hand in Zoom if you can. No, he's right here. Really, it shows right here on my screen. Okay, on a motion made by Trustee Conley, seconded by Trustee Berman, the motion passes with 4 votes by Trustee Conley, Trustee Wheeler, Trustee Berman, and myself, and Trustee Chang abstaining. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we will move along to item 5 on the agenda, which is the public hearing 2022-2023 local control accountability plan and annual update. And I believe our Ms. Bauer is presenting on that item.
Yes, good evening, trustees.
Thank you.
I'm here tonight to present the local control accountability plan for public hearing. So I guess before I present, we would need to open the public hearing.
Thank you. At 6:15, the regular meeting is adjourned briefly, and the public hearing on the local control accountability plan and the annual update is opened.
Okay,
Ms. Bauer.
thank you. So I am, here we go. Okay, so tonight I'm here with to give you an overview of our local control accountability plan. and give the public an opportunity to provide any input. As you know, we always align to our strategic plan, the work that we do in Mountain View Wisman, and our strategic plan is completely aligned to our LCAP is completely aligned to our strategic plan. And the goals in strategic plan 2027 directly align with the goals of the LCAP for the 22-23 school year. This is just kind of a graphic that you can see how we have aligned. The LCAP comes in 3-year cycles. And so we'll have two 3-year cycles of the LCAP to align with our 6-year strategic plan. So the school districts in California must develop 3-year plans to explain their goals and strategies for improving achievement for all students, and then provide updates on the prior year's plan and successes. We have to address the 8 state priorities and areas of improvement identified on the California dashboard. Our budget must match spending to the goals outlined in the plan. We also have a federal addendum, which was reported on the June 2nd meeting, and the local indicators that was also reported on at the June 2nd meeting. These are the 8 state priorities. There are 8 for districts and 10 for county offices of education. So our timeline for the LCAP, you can see here, started back in January. We shared our timeline, and then we administered our LCAP survey between January 31st and February 18th. And then from that time, we worked to draft the annual update and make revisions to our 2022-2023 LCAP. We shared for public comment with the District Advisory Committee and District English Language Advisory Committee in May. And we also shared our plan with our local SELPA. We have provided written responses to all the input received at those meetings. And so tonight is public hearing. So input from educational partners. So the process of developing our LCAP and engaging stakeholders is key. We want to make sure that the goals and actions within the LCAP are informed by the voices of our community, our students, our families, and our staff. And before you as a board can adopt our LCAP, we have to make sure that we present to advisory committees and respond to comments, which we have done. Just to give you a little overview, I did share a report at the May 19th meeting of the LCAP/climate survey. This just gives you a little bit more information on the survey that we administered at the end of January into February. Students in grades 4 to 8, staff, and parents. We did see a decrease in responses in all student groups this year, but still feel we gathered pertinent information to help us make some changes in our LCAP. So based on that information that we gathered in the survey, we did add some additional actions, which I want to highlight. We all know that we have instructional coaches, both to support our middle schools and our elementary schools, but we are adding this year a coach dedicated to English language development and newcomers, and one coach supporting instruction for students with disabilities. You did hear initial information on our dyslexia plan, which we are going to continue to expand, revise, and implement into the 22-23 school year. We have a focus on school cleanliness, as that was clearly an area of need outlined in our survey. So working with our sites and our maintenance department to make sure that cleaning is done and monitored. Professional development, convening both certificated and classified professional development committees next year to review those opportunities and collect feedback and input. And then staff input, doing a better job and working to facilitate more opportunities for our staff to provide input on district initiatives. So moving to our LCAP goals, as I mentioned before, the 5 goals here directly align to the 5 goal areas in our strategic plan. For each goal, we have a set of metrics that are put in place to develop our progress over the next 3 years. Some of the metrics are required, some of the metrics are selected by us. So for goal 1, which is our biggest goal area, or goal with our most action steps, we have a variety of metrics, including looking at our progress on iReady, looking at student results on the CASP assessments, which we gave for the first time in a couple of years. The reclassification rates, looking at long-term English language learners, students making 1 year of growth in English language arts and math, and the self-reflection tools that we do on the local indicators, which we presented at the last meeting. So for goal 1, again, our biggest goal area, we're spending about just over $7 million in this area. And some highlights include our instructional coaches, the iReady work, the iReady assessment and instruction package that we use to monitor student progress over the course of the year, our response to instruction program, summer programming, making sure that Castro Elementary School is being funded to support their needs with our Title I funds. We provide sites targeted student support funding so that they can provide supplemental programs to support our unduplicated students, focusing on designated and integrated English language development and progress monitoring. Then we also focus on co-teaching and intensive reading instruction to support students who are struggling in reading or possibly have a reading disability. Continuing, we added disproportionality. As you know, we're working with the Stanford Center to support excellence in teaching to implement a plan for systematic improvement for Hispanic Latino students. And we're also adding instructional assistants at Castro Elementary School in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade to help lower class size and support small group instruction. There are some actions here, our Director of Equity, MTSS, et cetera, that are aligned directly to our strategic plan work. So for goal 2, this looks at—
Sorry, could you say that again? My apologies.
I'm sorry. So it looks at things like attendance rates, discipline data, chronic absenteeism, suspensions, as well as a variety of items that are on our LCAP survey. So goal 2, we're spending just over about $1.5 million. Major actions include our at-risk supervisors that are at every site, our partnership with School Link Services and our Health and Wellness Committee, which is moving into its 2nd year. And then actions directly aligned to our strategic plan, including our student social emotional health, where we're implementing our plan of action, and our continued work on the whole school, whole community, whole child model. For goal 3 is around our community and our wanting to provide a welcoming place for our families. All of these, or the majority of these metrics, are all from our climate survey. So about $1 million in this area. Our school and community engagement facilitators that we have, we're adding additional support this year to support Castro and Mistral. This is where our staff input goal falls in supporting, finding opportunities for staff to provide more input, and then things like parent university, parent communication, and our district equity advisory committee, which is also moving into its 2nd year. Goal 4 is around staff retention. So we are looking at retention rates, highly qualified teachers, missed assignments, and also how staff feel in certain areas based on the LCAP climate survey. So goal 4, about $500,000 in expenditures planned. We have our partnership with the Santa Cruz Silicon Valley New Teacher Project, where we're supporting teachers in years 1 and 2 of their careers obtain their clear credential, but also get mentoring and support. The professional development committees, our hiring process, looking at how we can recruit and hire a diverse workforce, and then employee retention and support, which is directly aligned to our strategic plan, and how we're approaching professional development, differentiation, and ongoing support for our staff. And last, goal 5 looks at our use of resources and facilities. So we're looking at our facilities in good repair, the percentage of work orders that are completed, and then we're looking at some data collected in the LCAP climate survey. So goal 5, about $800,000 in expenditures. This is where our focus item is on school cleanliness, our technology devices, and our one-to-one program. Also, MVWSD Connect with CBRS will continue in deployment next year. And then, of course, meals for students, and then looking at flexible learning environments. So increased or improved services, we have to describe how services provided for our unduplicated pupils are increased or improved by at least the percentage calculated as compared to services provided for all students in the LCAP year. So our percentage this year was 6.96%, or about $2.7 million. But we're actually outlining or planning to spend $6.4 million in this area. And the main items that are contributing for the 22-23 school year are instructional coaches, response to instruction program, our targeted student support program, our director of equity, programs to increase opportunities for underrepresented students, which is directly aligned to our strategic plan, and then our school and community engagement facilitators, and then the addition of the instructional assistants that we are going to hire for Castro School. So our budget in total for the LCAP is around $11 million. You can see it comes from a variety of state and local funds. Some spending highlights you can see here, where how much we're spending to support quality instruction to help make sure that we're closing the achievement gap because students are getting high quality instruction every day. Our response to instruction program, making sure that students are having opportunities for small group instruction to either remediate or enrich. Continuing with summer school, supporting Castro School, our at-risk supervisors, and then our commitment to technology and new teachers. So our next steps, I will respond to writing to any comments tonight from the public hearing. Tomorrow night, I'll come to you for approval for the LCAP. And then on Friday, I will submit the LCAP to the County Office of Education. So at this point, I will stop sharing and I will answer questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bauer. Any clarifying questions from trustees? Trustee Conley?
Thank you so much, Ms. Bauer. So I had a question. I'm looking at the plan itself that is included in the packet. And for example, on page 35, when we look at the metrics for the different goals that we're trying to achieve, we have year 1, year 2, year 3 outcome. And something I wanted to make sure to clarify for the public is that the desired goals are a 3-year goal as opposed to a goal for next year. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we fill in our progress each year with the desired outcome at the end. Yes.
Okay. And this is the end of the first year of this LCAP, which is why that's the year 1 data.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, trustees? And I look, you see Trustee Chang. If Trustee Chang, if you have any questions, will you please raise your hand? Okay, seeing none, we will open it up to members of the public to comment on the LCAP. If you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, I am not seeing any comments. So trustees, did you have any other comments that you wanted to make? No, okay. I'm really happy to see the extra support going to Castro and some of the supports that we're putting in place for some of our, underserved student population. So I'm hopeful that that will be money well spent and we'll continue to see improvement in those groups. Okay, so now it is 6:30. I am going to close the LCAP hearing and reconvene the board meeting. And we will move along to item 5B, which is another public hearing. We got lots of those this evening. That one is the public hearing on resolution number 01061622, the Education Protection Account, or EPA, requirements. And we have our interim Chief Business Officer, Ron Wheelahan, presenting this evening. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you. So this item is the Education Protection Account, which is funding from the Great Recession in 2012 from sales tax and certain income tax. And the amount is $200 per student. And the caveat with these funds is that each year the board must look at the expenditures in the current year and the proposed expenditures for the following year. Again, this is a $200 per student, which is equates to $867,000. And included in the packet is the report on where the funds are spent.
Thank you, Mr. Wheelahan, and I should have opened the public hearing, so I will do that now. It's 6:31, the regular meeting is temporarily adjourned. The public hearing on the education protection account requirements is opened. So did you have anything else that you would like to say about the EPA requirements, Mr. Wheelahan? Or should I?
No additional comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, trustees? Okay, I am going to then now open the comment period for members of the public who would like to comment on the education protection account. If you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, I am not seeing anyone on our Zoom wanting to comment. Were there any trustee comments on this item? No. Okay, thank you. So at 6:32, the public hearing on the education protection account requirements is closed, and we reconvene back to the regular board meeting. And we will move along to item C, the public hearing, the 2022-2023 budget adoption. And I believe Mr. Wheelahan and Ms. Nadia Pongo will be presenting, but I will, before they do so, take this opportunity at 6:33 to adjourn temporarily the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees and open up the public hearing regarding the budget adoption. So please proceed.
Okay, thank you and good evening. And thank you, Ms. Nadia Pongo will join me in this presentation regarding our 2022-2023 budget adoption. Our budget is linked, of course, to our strategic plan. And we also have a resolution where we'll keep our reserves between 17 and 20%. And we'll speak to that later in the presentation in our multi-year projection. So the budget process as it goes through the year, first interim, second interim. So right now we're at the process of estimated actuals, where we're trying to look to see how we'll close out the year. And we're looking to also prepare a budget for next year. So I'll start with the estimated actuals, where we think we're going to end up. These are the changes since staff met at second interim in March. We did see our unsecured property tax increase by $950,000, and our secured property tax also increased $100,000. We found that some of our E-rate grant decreased $430,000, and some of our contributions to the food service program as well as special ed decreased by $230K. So we also, those were the revenues. On the expenditures, of course, we have settled for the current year. So we put in the on schedule and off schedule into the estimated actuals for this year. And we also took care of any of the remaining COVID-19 fund balance. What we'll see next is from the estimated actuals will be our unaudited actuals, and we'll see carryover balances that weren't used this year go into our first interim. So this is where we think we're going to end. Right now, staff is working hard to close the books for the current year. On the far right, you can see our combined balance coming forward was 31.5 million, total revenues 99 million, total expenditures 97 million. So actually, we had an increase in fund balance of $2.2 million is what we're anticipating, but we won't have that all until we close the books for the year. And we're anticipating a ending fund balance of $33.8 million. So this is what our estimated actuals are. That was our general fund. We also have our other funds, preschool, food service, OPEB or post-employment benefits, capital projects, developer fees, and special reserve for capital projects. So you can see the fund balance in some of these restricted funds. So here is a nice, easy to read graph on where our revenue comes in. 3.6 million in federal, other state 6.6, but the majority comes in as local and LCFF, which another word for local property taxes. Our expenditures going out, 79% is salary and benefits, close to 80%. And the rest is either books and supplies or service and other operating expenses. This gives you a breakdown of the pie graph in and out. And at this point, I'll turn the presentation over to Nadia.
Hello, good evening to trustees, and I will go over the multi-year projection. This multi-year projection, we use information that we currently know. The multi-year projection is not a tool to predict the future or as a crystal ball. We just like to use the information that we have at hand to use for our multi-year projection. Some of the assumptions we have is the COLA at 6.56% for state programs. We are projecting at 3% stepping column. We are also including the 4% salary schedule in the year 22 and 23. We're using an average 5% for medical benefits. This rate is suggested by the school services. For the AV growth, we are projecting 3% for year 1, year 2, and the third year out, we're using 2% for AV growth. We're using the STIRS and PERS rates per the dot board of school services. For the CalSTARS is keeping the 19.10% for the year 1 to year 3. For PERS is rate 25.37% in year 1, in year 2 is 25%, and year 3 is 24%. We anticipate to see significant changes at first interim once we settle with our unaudited actual, just like Mr. Winterheld just mentioned, and we're also going to see some COVID fundings roll over into next year. So this may create a higher increase on expenditures and may decrease our revenue at first interims. Some of the highlights of the changes is TK increases for classroom setup, teachers, and instructional aides. We are also projecting the CHAC contract increase from $396,000 to $624,000. We are also projecting to spend additional costs in Castro for instructional aides, and it's about 6 staff members for kindergarten and first grade. The estimated cost will be $485,000. We're also projecting to increase the insurance cost by $91,000, and we're also anticipating to have inflation in utilities. We are including the 4% in salary and benefit increases, as well as any other statutory benefits costs, such as PERS and PERS and STIRS. This year, the PERS increases from 16.9% to 19.10%. We're also projecting to make a contribution to child nutrition. Some of the costs for TK, as we're projecting in year 1, 3 people, 3 FTEs and 3 IAs. In year 2, 4 FTEs and 4 instructional aides. in year 3, 2 additional staff members and 2 IAs. So this with the estimated cost for the next 3 years for setting up TK, including furniture, is about $2.5 million. Ron, you would like to talk a little bit about child nutrition?
The universal meal mandate, I think I covered a little bit at the May revise. An update on the state budget is the legislature has produced a budget and has sent it over to the governor's office as of today, June 15th, and the governor has a couple of weeks to negotiate a final budget for July 1st. And in that is funding for the universal meal mandate, which states that we have to provide 2 meals a day for each student that wants one. So it looks like the legislature is on board. So we'll be able to adjust up, and we're hoping that there's enough funding to provide the 2 meals a day. And of course, we have to keep up with personnel costs, inflation, supply chain, and the delivery of food as we compete with other districts that also have this 2 meal a day mandate. So it'll be interesting, but we'll make it happen. So as we look at, oh, is this you, Nadia?
It is me.
You.
You can take it away if you like, but I will go over the restricted and unrestricted funds for the general fund for the year 22 and 23. For unrestricted programs, we're projecting net decrease of 1.9 million. For restricted programs, we're projecting a net decrease of $2.2 million, combined net decrease of $4 million. This includes the restricted programs. As you can see, we are projecting a 6.4 million beginning balance. As I mentioned previously, we'll be having those restricted funds rolling over into next year. We are projecting an end fund balance of $29,776,340. So in year 1, we are projecting a reserve level of 25.8%. In year 2, we're projecting a net decrease of 7.2 million with a reserve level of 19.73%. In year 3, we are projecting a net decrease of 8.9 million with a reserve level at 12.67%. But to keep in mind that we are being conservative at projecting our AB growth in year 1 at 3%, in year 2. In year 3, we're projecting at 2% AB growth. We're also taking a quick look at our other funds. Fund 12 for preschool and food services. Here we are projecting a contribution for food services, and we are waiting for things to settle, and hopefully we're able to decrease this contribution. That's it for me. Back to you, Ron.
So considerations for the future, of course, is the next 2 weeks as the governor's May proposals go up against the legislature's proposals. And I'm sure, of course, if the legislatures didn't get a budget done today, they would not get paid. So they did indeed get their budget over to the governor. So we'll keep an eye on it. Of course, things of interest to us are some of the one-time funding, some of the items such as the TK funding. Will basic aid districts get any funding to support that? But we will know more in the next couple of weeks. So the next steps is tomorrow, we'll go ahead and adopt the budget, and which includes the EPA calculation, the LCAP in the budget, and the budget overview for parents. So that's for tomorrow, and then we'll keep in touch with the budget trailer bill as it comes up, and if there's significant changes and some one-time funding, any other meal funding, we may propose to do a 45-day budget revision so we can get those budget numbers updated with the adopted budget. And we'll take any questions at this point before we move on to the budget overview for parents.
Thank you very much, trustees. It looks like Trustee Wheeler has a question.
Yes, thank you. Can you tell us more about that year 3 reserve number, reserve percentage that's lower than our board recommended reserve?
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Thanks.
Okay, so in year 1, as Nadia mentioned, we're planning to deficit spend $4 million. Of course, that also means we're spending down restricted dollars. So the only way you can get to restricted dollars is by deficit spending. So that is included in the 4 million. Year 2, we're projecting a 7.2. Well, this is a very conservative AV or assessed value on our property taxes, which is a good way to go. We're projecting a 3%. But still that leaves the reserve at 19.7. And then the third year is where we have the assessed value at 2%. Just for the fact, you know, we hear that the market is cooling off. We just to look out that far and project what our assessed value will be at. We know it'll be 2% because that's everybody gets a 2% increase in their property taxes every year, but anything above and beyond that is unknown. And that's why the third year has an $8.9 million deficit and brings us below. But again, as we roll through the years, these will, and at first interim, we'll also we'll have the impact of the state budget. This doesn't include any of the state budget items.
So I'm still not clear on that because this is the first year. I mean, all of these things that you just described are things that have always been true in the past. But we've always had a year 3 reserve level much higher than this. So maybe I'm not understanding what you're telling us, but it's disturbing to see that 12.67% sitting there.
Again, yeah, as we deficit spend in those 2 out years, it is pulling down the balance. I don't know, Nadia, do you want to?
So, I mean, this is exactly what we talked about when we did a 3-year agreement with the teachers union, and we, you know, currently our AV value is at 8.6. We're budgeting 3%, but until the roll is finalized, we won't know what that looks like. You know, each percentage point is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $500,000. And so next year you're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2.5 to 3 million. And then you add that into the roll, but until it's actually finalized, like last year's roll actually just got finalized this month. And so it's just a, you know, we do our best to be conservative and to sort of predict. And then we track, but because we've negotiated up front and we know what the exact costs are, you're working against a very conservative projection, which is what we always use versus what the actual roll is going to be. So there's always this lag that sort of occurs. And then that first interim, they will update the budget based off of where our roll is at. And then at the end of the year, we finalize it one more time once the final roll is determined by the county.
So we should wait until the end of the year to see what that percentage is.
This is what we're adopting for our budget right now. And then the first interim is the first update for the budget. That's normally when you see the roll is actually changed. So if you go back and you look at first interim this year, you'll see that the reserve level actually went back up as a result of where the roll is. And so it always has this ebb and flow throughout the year. But this is based off of our current projections, which don't take into account a guess of what the final roll is going to be. If you remember a couple years ago, when we ended up having to do some cuts behind the scenes, it was because the former CBO projected that this is where it was going to be, even though it wasn't on that number. And because we made assumptions and negotiated a contract based off of where we thought it was going to be, and then it came in a lot lower. That's what ended up causing some other financial issues for the district. Whereas this time we know that this is an extremely conservative projection, and so we used that as we did our 3-year projection. But we knew going in that we were at 14.4 before we even settled with the teachers. So we sort of knew that we would be in this ballpark, but we also knew that our role was coming in higher. And so until it finalizes, that's sort of, it's just the game. It's not really a game, but it's just the balancing act that you have to play between having fixed costs that you know, as well as managing the actual budget. So we should be pretty fine. You should see this go back up. It's not something I think that we're worried about. It's the 2023, 2024 year that may cause us some concerns as interest rates go up. And that's depending on what happens with property values. But again, as Ron said, like you're guaranteed 2%. And so next year we'll only predict, or the year after that, you're sort of predicting 1 year over the COLA or the 2% roll that's going to come in. So we sort of feel good about where it is, but you know, there's always a chance for a recession that will bring values crashing. The other good thing about Mountain View is that the actual tax value is half of what the actual value of a home is. So every time a home sells, we actually are gaining a lot more because most of the homes are valued. I think the actual assessed value of most homes is around 700,000, even though the average value of a home is at least around 1.5, at least last time I checked. So we're in good shape, but it doesn't mean that we should be aggressive or very forward. We should keep a conservative approach in terms of how we're budgeting, and what you're seeing is a reflection of the conservative approach.
Trustee Conley, oh, I'm sorry, were you done, Trustee Wheeler? Trustee Conley.
So just to make sure, I think what you're asking, Trustee Wheeler, is why does it look so different this year? And in the past, when we do our 3-year projection, it does not include future staff salary increases. Is that correct?
Correct. Normally, we just do a 1 year.
And so this year we have that 4% already built in the budget for each of those future years, which does knock us down dramatically. In the past, one of the downsides of kind of negotiating year to year, as we have in the past, is that to a certain extent, we wait to see what our assessed value is closer to the end of negotiations to figure out where we can land in those negotiated raises versus, you know, with this, it's guaranteed, but it's going to show up in our budget in a different way than it has in the past.
So basically, you're telling us we shouldn't worry. That's a question.
I think we're pretty good at being extremely conservative and watching the market trends. Obviously, what's currently happening in the market with the Fed raising the interest rate by 3/4, and then it's again signaling that they're going to raise it again by another 3/4. It is possible that that's going to have an impact, you know, because they're saying that, excuse me, at least in today's report, that they're predicting that it will be a market downturn similar to 1990, 91, which was a lot more sizable than the previous two. But, you know, at the same time, the Bay Area, because of the lack of housing, has sort of weathered the storm a little bit differently than other places in America. And so I don't see it having as big of an impact, but it will slow down in the coming year. But I think we're in really good position to continue to do programs with students. The previous way that Trustee Conley pointed out was always like, as soon as they know what the overage is, and that's what they go for. And in this case, we're not worried about that. We have a very great package in front of people. And at the same time, we're very conservative, and we should be good and weather the storm that may be coming. But again, that requires us to be extremely conservative with our projections which we've been for the last couple of years.
Thank you. I'll save my comment for the time for comments, but were there any other questions? Oh, sorry, Trustee Berman.
Yes, I just went back to look at the responses to the questions that I had submitted, and I asked a question on about slide 33, where it says the actual expenditures for high need students that was in the LCAP is just over 5 million. And I just had a clarifying question about the chart. Thank you for that response on those questions. I was just a little confused about, and if I go back to that, this might be more of a question for Ms. Bauer to the document. I might have the definition, but I will ask my question. The plans on that chart, the last two columns say planned percentage of improved services, estimated actual percentage of improved services. I'm just wondering what that, if you could just explain to me what that means, so I make sure I understand the chart and how to read it.
Thank you, Trustee. I may add that we're going to have we're going to open the hearing for the parent overview budget. So that will be next. If it's okay, can we hold on to the questions when
absolutely.
we get to the budget hearing for parent overview? Thank you.
Yes, I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't sure where the slides merged. So let us open the hearing up to members of the public to comment on the budget adoption. If there's any members of the public wishing to speak, please raise your hand in Zoom.
Ron, you have to stop sharing.
I'm not seeing any hands. So before we go to the public hearing for parents, go ahead, Trustee Conley. I have something I'd like to say as well. Well, I was just going to say we can't always trust 2%. In 1989, our fearless county assessor dropped the values. My husband bought his home in October of 89, and like 2 weeks later, he basically lost his down payment. It got reassessed for 20% lower than what he had paid for it. And, that caught up over time. And, that was a dip for a few years until they caught back up. But I don't know that we can always count on that. That said, for the other reasons that Dr. Rudolph mentioned, that the tax basis of properties in Mountain View is so much lower than the fair market value. Once properties start to flip, and they will, and they do that, we get more of a bump rather than if it was just sort of a relatively static or slightly increasing market. So I'm comfortable with that. I mean, having 17% reserve in year 3 is what the state wants us to do. On the other hand, that's a lot of reserve, 3 years out. And I like being conservative, but I'm glad we're paying our teachers well. So, and you're right, it does reflect, Trustee Conley, in the calculations. It looks a little different when we've got that 3-year actual number to plug in there. But I'm comfortable with it, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it.
I was just going to agree with you, President Blakely. I'm comfortable with the projections. I think I'm really crossing my fingers for that budget update that we get in the fall when we come back to be a positive one, especially once we have the state budget finalized as well, and we see what our assessed value is for this past fiscal year. But I'm also very thankful for our conservative approach because we do live in uncertain times, and there are some financial storms on the horizon that it's going to take being fiscally prudent to weather. So thank you to our entire business office team for the work that they do to make sure we can do so successfully.
You're here. Any other comments, trustees? Okay, thank you. So can't see what time it is either on my phone or 7 o'clock. Thank you. It's 7 o'clock. Oh, this one says 7:03. So it's 7:03. The public hearing on the budget adoption is closed, and we will move to immediately at the same time to the public hearing on the budget overview for parents. And I believe we have Mr. Wheelahan and Ms. Pongo presenting again. So please proceed. Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Nadia.
Yes, thank you, Rob. So I will be presenting the budget overview for the school year 22-23. And school is for California Ed Code, school districts are required to have a public hearing. So I'll go over and over these numbers with you. In the revenue side, we are projecting to receive $97 million. Of that, 4% is federal funds, 7% is state funds, which is about 6.6 million, and 15% is other and local revenues and other local funding. Of that, that's 71%. 3% is for the generated funds for students of high needs. In the project, and now we're going to talk about the expenditures. So we are projecting to spend 99 million. Of that, 11 million point two are linked to the LCAP with goal and actions, as Ms. Bauer already went in very great big detail in all the expenditures. They are linked with goals and actions to the LCAP. So here we have this the snapshot of the year 21 and 22. So we had projected a budget of 4 million, and now the actual revenue are, as we get in at estimated actuals, we're saying we're going to spend 5.1 million. This is mainly for all the salary increases that we projected, and now we have a more closer projection to what all those services will cost. And that concludes my presentation for budget parent overview for the LCFF.
Thank you, Ms. Pongo. So I know that Trustee Berman has a question.
Sure. It was just like that question I submitted in the board questions doc. There was a table that was included. And just real quick, I just want to make sure I understand what those last two columns mean around planned percentage of improved services, because there's zeros in both, and I just want to understand what that means.
I believe every year we need to update our LCFF improve services, and we need to express, we need to go over in detail how much more we need to, what we improve in services and actions in the LCAP. I know, Ms. Bauer, if you're around, if you'd like to elaborate in all those improved services for students in high needs.
So I just want to get clarity. I need a little more information so I can make sure I'm asking correctly. You're asking about the zeros?
I was just curious what those two columns were at the end.
Planned percentage of improved services and estimated actual percentage. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, exactly.
So because we exceeded our estimated actuals in terms of the amount we spent. So if you look at the two columns prior, we planned to expend, say, on instructional coaches, $1.1 million, but we actually spent 1.8. We don't have to calculate the percentage pieces. It just becomes zero per the county. That's a new piece this year, so it is a little bit confusing. If we had not exceeded or not met our estimated expenditures, then you would have seen percentages in there, a percentage of what we had done and not done, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you very much. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. Did any other trustees have questions on this? Okay, I'm going to open it up to members of the public. If anyone would like to comment on the budget overview for parents, please raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, seeing none at 7:04, 7:05, I think this computer was 3 minutes fast, but 7:05, the public hearing budget overview for parents is closed, and we will return to the regular agenda of the agenda of the regular board meeting. Thank you, Ms. Bauer and Ms. Pongo and Mr. Wheelahan for your presentations this evening. We'll now move along to the board update section. And do any trustees have updates for us?
Ms. Bauer, you can turn off your camera.
Oh, apologize.
Yeah, he's sitting there. Yeah.
Yeah, I have an update. So I'm going to submit updates to Ms. Villaseñor. But I mispronounced that, and I apologize. I often say that I attend the AXA legislative lunch breaks, and I recommend them to everybody, and sometimes others of you attend them. I went to the one today, and they had a federal attorney, or an attorney there who covers federal issues, and he was describing the potential deal on gun safety that the Senate has put together, and he was describing highlights of that agreement. So I'd like to list them here. And one thing he was saying is, this is not a done deal. It hasn't been voted on yet, but and it would be voted on by the Senate and then go to the House. So it's not going to be done tomorrow. But anyway, one thing that this proposed legislation has is, something that we had talked about a couple of weeks ago, which is red flag laws. Another is, and this is the name of this thing. It's kind of a slangy name, but it's close the boyfriend loophole. So you can do background checks on people who are you think are problematic. Also have an enhanced review process for those under age 21. So it doesn't go so far as to say that people under 21 cannot get an assault rifle, but at least you could do an enhanced review process. And then more money for mental health services and counselors. So that's something that potentially our school district could take advantage of or utilize, in our existing services. So anyway, I wanted to give everybody an update on that. It's better than nothing. So I'm fairly optimistic.
Thank you. At least a step in the right direction. Trustee Conley.
That reminds me, Trustee Wheeler. So the red flag laws that were brought up at our last meeting regarding whether or not teachers could make a red flag, it actually passed in California 1 or 2 years ago for high school teachers. It's just that it's not in place for middle school teachers, but it does exist already in the state for high school teachers.
Thank you. So if there are no further updates, or people will be submitting them by email to Ms. Villaseñor, we'll move on to item 7, the items for future agendas. Were there any items for future agendas, Dr. Wheel?
No, no submitted today.
Okay. So then item 8 is the future board meeting dates, and we've got one a little less than 24 hours from now. So that's, and we have both a regular and a special meeting tomorrow. I believe the special meeting's at 5 o'clock and the regular meeting's at 6. Is that what I have? No,
I think it's 5:30 and 6.
All righty. So at 7:10, the meeting of the June 15th meeting of the Board of Trustees is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.